The splash of the fresh rain down on Sunshine Field's forest could be heard for miles, the first rain in weeks. If you listen hard enough, you might hear the sizzle of the cool rain splashing against the hot grass and asphalt. Deep into the woods, past the graveyard, was Sunshine Field's abandoned hospital. Many had forgotten about that place by now, making it the perfect hideout for a stray like Mystery Burns. He had some old and dirty hospital blankets wrapped around him as he sat in his dark, makeshift bedroom. The once soft, white, snow-colored fleece of his blanket now going yellow and pilling with age, and was arguably as crunchy as his own matted and borderline dreaded hair. Mystery watched the broken window high up with great vigor as the rainwater slowly splashed into the hospital. He had been zoned out in place for an hour now and wasn't planning to zone in anytime soon. His eyes, dull and dazed as his mind was, watched the one spot that all the rain seemed to coagulate from the gutters. His hands and feet had all gone numb and cold from not moving, his mouth slightly agape, giving his the expression, the one of fading wonder. Mystery had blinked for the first time, feeling his hot tears run down his cheeks as his eyes watered. Mystery licked them up from his eyes and smiled. The purple cat soon turned his attention to the clock that was stuck on the wall from the hallway. He squinted, reading the time of 4:30 a.m. That was definitely a mistake. The clock had not moved since the day he arrived. Yet, in his own little world, it was a new time completely.
12:10? The doctor's gonna be late!
Mystery threw the blanket off him and walked to a desk in the room where he made his silly little comics and wrote prescriptions for his so-called friends. Mystery picked up an old broken clipboard with Freddy's patient files on it. It showed that he was due for another one of Mystery's experiments 10 minutes ago. Mystery smiled to himself, slipping on his raggedy doctor's coat and old peeling boots. The purple cat was hopping down the hallway as he struggled to get the last boot on, making his way over to Freddy's room. Alfred felt the water from the head drip down from his nose and onto his clothes. The pipes. It's leaking again. Alfred looked up, seeing the ropes pull on his wrists. He was sure he had a burn on them by now. Pulling against the rope, Alfred found that he was only met with searing pain and the warmth of reopened scabs. He let out a yell, yet had no strength to pull himself back up. He sat there slouching, whining in pain through the grinding of his teeth. Quickly, Alfred could hear someone coming, more like stumbling, as they paused in front of the room. The door slowly creaked open before a purple cat banged his head on the doorframe, slouching a bit, then re-entering. Fingers wrapped around the doorframe and head peering over the edge like a shy kid.
Hello!
The cat said with the face twinkling in glee. Alfred looked up weakly, only to be met with the face of the purple cat.
The doctor is so terribly sorry for his lateness. You see, Freddy, Mystery got a little distracted.
Mystery rambled and rambled on about why he was late, while Alfred looked on in dismay. The Shiva's jaw hung open and loose, trails of drool dripping down his chin. Mystery gave him a sly grin, slinking his way into the room.
Mystery hasn't seen any improvement in Freddy with his medication. Sad, sad. In this case, friend Freddy's going to go to sugary. Something must be in Freddy's brain that makes him feel sad. So the doctor will take it out.
Alfred flinched at that word. He looked up at the cat. His mouth seemed to grin wider than before. The cat came up to him, untying the ropes that held him up, and dragged him to the surgery room. Alfred screamed and whined in pain as he got held up by his burnt wrists. It was all still so raw. Cal was left alone with nothing to keep him company but the blood-curdling screams of Alfred as Mystery did some sort of sick and twisted experiment. Cal struggled against his chair. He was sure he had rope burns all over his body from constantly being scratched. Cal had tried to use his small hooves and slowly scratch and file away at the rope as the knot was too high up to reach. If he could just snap one loop, he could wiggle his way out of the chair to find Alfred and run home free. All he had to do was get out of this rope. Cal gasped softly, then hearing a snap. A pressure was released off his stomach and slowly traveling up. Cal quickly wiggled out of the ropes and fell face first onto the floor with a thud. He lay there for a few seconds, feeling all the wounds and burns on his body instantly heal themselves. At least he didn't have to worry about them, and could now focus on finding Alfred. Cal slowly opened his eyes and pulled off the tape from his mouth. He had picked himself up off the floor and opened his door.
Oh, Alfred, I'm so sorry I brought you here. I'll find you and get you out.
Cal took off. He searched through each and every room, trying his best to find them. Cal went into the direction of the screams, his stomach sinking in fear. In front of him was a pool of blood. Mystery seemed to be cleaning it. Cal knew he couldn't make his move now, as Mystery wasn't aware of him being free. He had to find a way to get out with Alfred and just run. But at the same time, he didn't want to risk it. Cal just froze up, stuck in a mind loop, only able to watch. Meanwhile, Alfred lay, his body weak and his mind frail, his blurry vision looking at a pink mass in front of him. His own prefrontal cortex. Mystery had just taken out a part of his brain. Alfred struggled to keep an eye open. He just stared at it. Alfred merely fell off his bed and onto the floor with a small splash. Alfred opened his eyes to see a puddle of his own blood. His whole body was weak, limp, and crying and scratching at his bones in agony. Alfred looked down at the puddle of blood, glancing at himself in it. Seeing his own form made him feel powerless, like the shell of some kind of former decent human throw. Long lost was Alfred Brown, the religious teacher. Now only Alfred Brown, Mystery's plaything. The man tuned out his own reflection, staring intently at the puddle of blood around him. It pooled and coagulated, seeping deep into the cracks of the tiles and below the flooring beyond the eye's view. The ripples his soft breath made gave him a calming sensation. The deep metallic taste in his mouth, like that of a used battery. The scarlet red color, reminiscent of lipstick. It made Alfred's stomach queased in excitement. Alfred's jaw hung open again, feeling the warmth of the blood sink its bitter fangs into Alfred's fur and clothes, like red wine staining a carpet, but alive. Slowly, the Shiba extended his tongue and lapped up the blood. Alfred's eye widened, feeling the blood disperse off his tongue and into the rest of his mouth. Alfred pushed past the hair, dust, and other flavors that mixed with the blood off the floor, and focused on the slightly tangy metallic taste of his life fluid. The dog looked down at the blood, feeling newfound energy flow throughout his veins. The Shiba bent down, lapping up the contents with his tongue like some kind of starved animal. Alfred licked up a good portion of the blood before getting an idea. His eye moved itself till it landed on a warm, pink object.
One bite can't hurt, right?
Alfred picked himself up and dragged his body to the chunk of brain, picking it up and squishing it. It was damp and warm, the bottom slightly chilly from the cold dresser it was sitting upon. Alfred reached forward and sank his starved maw into the pink flesh and bit off a chunk. It tasted like uncooked chicken, the texture slightly rough. His tongue glided against the folds and creases before chewing, feeling the lump burst open and flavor go around his mouth. The dog started to devour the brain, making loud chewing sounds. He had lost all regard for his manners as he sucked the meat down. Alfred could feel the sensation, the brain matter touching his stomach, writhing in his acid, and having it being eaten away by his body. He craved more. He needed more. But where in this hospital could he ever find something else to scrap upon?
And done! Mystery is oh so tidy!
As if on cue, Mystery spoke up. He seemed to have finished cleaning the blood from the floor and walls.
Mystery was worried that his drawings would be ruined!
Alfred looked at Mystery with his olive green eye, examining his structure. The purple cat didn't seem to have much meat on his bones, yet Alfred wondered what other body parts of him would taste like. Alfred stood tall, his ribs protruding from his chest, and stepped forward. Cow had thought of his plan. He was gonna distract Mystery, and then make a run for it with Alfred. Cow was bouncing up and down, preparing himself to go. He had stepped into the hallway, opening his mouth to speak, before a flash of purple went by his eyes as Mystery was pulled into the room behind him. Cow froze, hearing a smash, the sounds of ripping and tearing and gurgling. It all bounced and echoed off the empty hospital walls, eventually turning into soft squishing. Cow stood in horror, his hooves going cold as he slowly walked up to the door, his tiny clip clops of his hooves reminiscing throughout the hall.
Al, is everything okay in here?
Cow spoke softly, but was met with no reply. Cow put his hooves up on the wall and peered in. What he saw made him have to fight the urge of throwing up. Mystery's head was removed from his body. It was rolled off and disregarded to the side. His bones appeared to be broken, his arms and legs bent in ways that shouldn't be possible without some kind of witchcraft. But the worst had to be the chest. Alfred was on top of him, chewing and eating his ribcage. Cal watched completely helpless as he saw Alfred rip through Mystery's body. Cal couldn't keep himself back anymore. He let out a wail of terror as Alfred stopped in his tracks, slowly turning himself to view the ram with red, bloodshot eyes. His breathing was heavy and raggedy, as if he was too busy stuffing his face to breathe. The dog stood tall, growling at Cow. The short ram had backed up before taking off. He could hear the footsteps of Alfred getting closer. He flapped his wings, trying to fly or get some kind of speed. Tears ran down his cheeks as he just was trying to find a way to escape before being met with a familiar face. Yuki Charco, Alfred's wife. Maybe she could snap him out of this and things will go back to normal. Just maybe. Cal grabbed Yuki's hand, gripping it with all his force.
Huh? Oh, Cal, there you are. Where's Alfred?
Cal cried and held on to her.
Please, Yuki, just...
Cal froze as he heard the sounds of growling and scratching from right behind. Yuki walked into the psych ward. A blank yet disappointed look stained on her face. She walked in, seeing a young lady working up front. The woman looked at Yuki, showing her a pained look, before pressing a button and unlocking the door for her. Yuki gave her a polite nod and started to walk down the silent gray corridor, her heels echoing off the steel doors of various patients. She stopped in front of one door, labeled 457 Alfred Brown. Yuki pushed open the door and walked in.
Hello, Alfred.
Yuki looked at him with sad eyes. Alfred looked up at her and smiled.
Yuki, finally, you could tell me what's going on.
Yuki flinched, looking away from him.
Alfred, how are you feeling?
Well, I remember being in the hospital. Then, when I woke up here, at least you'll be able to get me out now, right?
No, Alfred, you are here for the rest of your life. For the slaughter consumption of Victor Burns, and for biting my shoulder off. I had to get stitches. 100 stitches, Alfred.
Huh? What? No. Wait, Yuki. How's Cow? Is he okay?
Yuki flinched at the mention of Cow, and Alfred picked up on it.
What happened to Cow?
I'm sorry, Alfred, but I cannot stay long. You're considered unstable. I have to leave.
Yuki left the cell, ignoring Alfred and the tears coming to her eyes as Alfred kept calling out to her.
Yuki, wait. What happened? What did I do to Cow? Yuki.